Hey, today the Boar du jour is a Zenith B10. I've had it soaking for about an hour. It's kind of how I'm breaking my boars in lately, because this one's had maybe 4 shaves on it, and it is, I'm happy to report, quickly a very comfortable boar brush. Lots of nice hair in it. Nice and dense, gives you a great feel. Really happy with it early on, and it's just going to get better. The blade we're going to use today is my feather, and I have used it 17 times, so today's 18. And I love the fact that I've used this one so much now it doesn't quite stick to the paper like it used to. Enough of that waxy stuff has been rubbed off. I like that. The razor for today and the blade both were used yesterday. This is a number 15. Got some hair caught in there. Number 15 from the English Gillettes. And this is the Aristocrat. And it's got the ways to tell it's a 15. You've got open comb, that kind of a bottom. Most importantly, you have a solid base plate, flat base plate instead of the diamond bevel shape. And something else to look at, you've got these flanges here on the end of the rail, and those are, that's called the non-notched center bar, and we're ready to go. So we'll throw I love the flanges, the wings, if you will, on the end, because any razor I've ever had that has those really locks in the blade. No adjustment needed. It's always secure and exactly the right spot. Now, I noticed yesterday, after I had kind of a rough shave with the first pass with this, kind of attributed it to maybe a bad lather. But then I looked at the razor today, and I noticed there's one side where the blade, and that's great, I can't tell which side it is now, where the blade had a little bit of waviness to it, a couple of undulations. The one side is just pristine, but the other one, so that probably means it was dropped at some point. There are also some plier marks probably on some of these arms here where they probably tried to adjust it back and that sort of thing. So I'm happy to see now, when there's no blade in it, I can see a gap in the sides, on one of those sides, and on the ends of one of the sides. But I'm happy to report that it looks solid, looks straight now. I bet I get a much better shave than I did yesterday. The bowl we're going to use is my 3D printed bowl. This is the 127 diameter one. My friend Roger, who printed this for me and designed it, is going to make me a bigger one. I've discovered that I prefer one that's a little bigger, and so that's why I keep stating the width here, so that when I do switch to the bigger one, you'll be able to tell. I'll put a link in the description for this pattern, the electronic files you need if you have a 3D printer. Pretty cool. Now, as always, with samples, we're going to have to press the sample down into the bottom of the bowl because we can't load from such a tiny container. And what is this? This is a test base for Oz shaving. Recently got it today, I believe. And they had a sale on soap a few months ago, and I went ahead and bought one, Tornadic, I believe. But it was so lightly scented, I just haven't gotten around to using it yet. I don't like lightly scented soaps, and so it didn't really intrigue me very much. So I do have their previous base. Well, this is a tester base they're putting together. And so maybe after I use this one, I'll try the old one to see how it compares. And so I'm going to give my feedback back to the maker with this. and then hopefully that'll help them. Several shavers out there were given the opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm in." I guess I was among those who got in there quick enough. He didn't have tons of samples. Now the scent here, there's something in here that I'm going to evaluate the scent a little bit, but my thoughts are that he is more focused on having his the base analyzed critiqued in terms of the slickness, the performance factors, the cushion, the feel, the post-shave feel. You know, those, how easy is it to build the lather? You know, those sort of things, rather than the scent itself, since the scent can be varied in so many ways. But I'll critique that just a little bit. There's something kitcheny in here. Maybe vanilla, something like that. You know, I can't put my finger on it, but my mind was taken instantly to food or a cookie or something like that. So we'll see how it pans out. So if you've never used a sample before, there are many companies who offer samples, and often they use these small cosmetic tubs. And they usually come with enough soap for maybe 5 shaves, something like that. Just depends on how well they pack them. A 1/4 teaspoon measure is what I use to make sure I get the best, more uses out of this, because you don't need, for most soaps, you don't need any more than that. So I'm going to press, I'm going to get a nice, even 1/4 teaspoon, and that way we will have a good comparison. All right, so I scooped out my 1/4 teaspoon, and there it is, flat. And if you get a thin measuring spoon like this, then it's much easier to dig out the harder soaps instead of some of the ones that have thicker walls, you know, then that makes it more difficult. All right, and so I'll then take it out. If you don't have a measuring spoon on hand, this looks like about the same amount I might be able to put if it's a rounded heap on the top of my thumbnail. So I've used that measure before too. So I'm now going to take and press this into the bottom of the bowl. Now, if you're a face latherer, then you don't have potentially a lather bowl. What can you do then? Well, number one, you could buy a lather bowl. But number two, you could just use a soup bowl, cereal bowl, even a big cappuccino mug. But I find that the soup or cereal bowls just work a little better. Trying to press this into certain areas so that I make sure that I get all the soap picked up by the brush and none of it's tucked away behind one of the ridges or something like that. Washing my fingertips off of the soap. It was nicely slick, but it didn't take forever to rinse off clear. Nice attribute. Okay. All right. So, you know, he's wanting to improve the Oz shaving, he or she. I'm going to say he just because it's the understood pronoun. No offense if it's a lady who's behind that particular business. Can't remember what I was saying now. I was being PC, and so I lost my train of thought. All right. Oh, before I start the lather process, let me do my usual, splash my face with water. It's been 24 hours since my last shave. This is hard water. And it is cold. So we'll see how this lather works in cold water. Most of them work great. And this brush holds quite a lot of water. Lots of bristles, like I mentioned to you. I'm going to do a pretty good amount of shaking. This is be my standard way of treating a new soap, a new cream. And then we'll start it up. Like some green floral is starting to come out now that it's wet. Oh yeah. So first few swipes with the brush reveal that it goes the route of many types of soaps. It's airy and bubbly. And that's fine. Now I'm not saying my way is the only way to lather soaps. This is just one way. And it pretty much applies to so many soaps that it's kind of my Swiss Army knife, if you will. So I don't add any water from my little bin, my cup over there, because I want to see how it acts without any extra water. And it's actually coming up into a nice thick foam there without too much water. Yeah, something very interesting. That warm cookie related smell, it's not there when it's wet. This green, maybe some kind of floral is there. Little soap bit. All right, so now I'm going to take my 2 teaspoon syringe. I don't know if this is going to be helpful for the maker, knowing exactly how much water I use, but it's what I do. Many soaps start out bubbly and airy, like this one did, but you just push through, you keep mixing, and it improves. And water, etc. Looks like a really good base so far. Looks like I can go ahead and add, let's just go ahead and add the whole thing, just in case. See what happens. Sometimes it's good to overload a soap with water, just so you see how it looks and behaves. Hopefully, though, I haven't done that. So it's not whipping up into a big body. It's staying kind of low structure, if you will. Looks pretty nice. It's got a sheen to it. Let's do a finger test. See, I'm testing number 1. I'll squeeze it together, see how much resistance I get. Pretty good bit of cushion right there. Now I'll move my fingertips across my thumb pad and see how well I feel the ridges in my fingerprints. Pretty good slickness, and there's a thickness to the slickness, which is good. And that kind of might equate to a creamy feel. I do just barely feel that I have ridges in my fingerprints. So, to me, that's very encouraging. I usually like to push a little bit more water into a soap that's at this feel. It may be right for this soap, it might not, but let's just try it and see what happens. So I just added half a teaspoon, so we've got 2.5 teaspoons of water added. Obviously there was a little bit of water left in the brush after I had soaked the brush, and so that water of course was in the mix as well. Now sometimes you will see in many soaps the volume of the soap will increase as you add water. Oh, that's a very nice looking soap. I believe the volume did increase some. That's a very interesting scent. I'm be interested to see how it smells when it's on my face. Let us just, you know what, let's push it just a little farther. I'm going to add one more half, so I've got 3 teaspoons of water in the soap. And I believe, judging from what I'm seeing now, I'll probably stop. Now, if you don't like to lather for as long as I do, then there are other ways around that. Figure out how much water needs to be added and kind of add it right away, and then just mix it until it's right, you know. Switch to face lathering. Sometimes that's a little faster. But I kind of think of it as a meditative process. And when I do a broadcast here, then I know that I'm sharing that method with other people, and maybe somebody out there needs that kind of help. Well, now this is a nice looking lather. The peaks still have structure and body. They wiggle a little bit, but they're holding up. They're not drooping down or anything like that. Some people would still continue to add water. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop and just see what happens. I believe there's plenty of volume to accomplish my entire shave if I need to go 4 passes. It looks like that's not going to be a problem. All right, water on my face one last time before the lathering. I'll show you the modification I did to this B10. See where my thumb is right there? There were 2 little sharp ridges that went around the whole waist of the brush handle right there, and they bothered me so much I just drummeled them right off. Did a little sanding, much more comfortable. All right, this is a soft brush, so that should also help the soap to be nice and comfortable when applied. Now it's dissipating a little bit, and there's not that much around the base here. Maybe I wetted it too much, but because we have a bowl down there, I can just go down and get a little bit more. So who knows, maybe this first try will be illustrating how well this soap does when it is too wet. Does not look like it's too thick. Sometimes that's the case. Let's now I think I've done enough scrubbing. All right. I've used up quite a bit that's in the bowl. It's a little concerning, but I may not need as much in future passes. All right, feathers loaded up in there. We're ready to go with the grain. This is a lot more comfortable than yesterday. Soap is probably too wet. Now sometimes a soap can still generate a good bit of slickness. How does my face feel? Yeah, you know, feels pretty slippery just with fingertips and stuff. The lather looks too wet when I'm looking at it on the razor. Yep. All right. So I'm going to rinse now. Something I'm going to pay attention to is how does it feel as I'm rinsing? Does it rinse quickly? Does it take a long time because it's so slippery and slick? Let's see what we get. All right, so I did feel some slickness as I was rinsing, but it very quickly rinsed away. And so that does go along with the theory that I have oversaturated the soap with a little bit too much water. That would probably cause that. So we'll keep that in mind as we move forward. I didn't remember that I noticed the scent during that first pass. I'll try to remember to think about that. I dried my face, so I don't have any water on my face, which might help this to be a little creamier and thicker. This lather feels different than many of the other bases out, and I've tried all the big ones and a lot of the smaller ones, most of the medium ones. It feels almost like the lathers of the others feel more like a soap lather, where this feels more like something liquid but thick, almost like glue but not sticky like glue. It just feels a little different, not like a gel, because it's not a gel. So it's probably got some skin conditioning elements in it, like butters or oils or something like that. But it's not irritating me at all. I'm not getting a smell right now. So for me, the scent is a little on the weak side. I'd probably say it's maybe a 1 or a 2 out of 10. I'll try to notice it when I rinse. It's not agitating my skin, no irritation. So now let's see what kind of glide and slickness I get. Cross grain now. Nice slickness. A little bit of residual, like right now my skin's not pulling or anything like that. It feels very hydrated and moisturized right now. So this feels like it's really protecting my skin pretty well. I think I definitely made the right move drying out my face so that the leftover water on my face didn't contribute to the wetness of the lather, and I think that brought it back to a pretty good place. Nice glide. I feel protected. Did I say that already? Sorry. All right, time for another rinse. Now that rinse was very nice. In this particular episode, if we call it that, is going to be analytical, because I'm going to furnish this and point the creator to this video so that they can kind of see that as feedback, and I believe it might be helpful to them. So if that's not your thing, if you don't like this kind of analysis, then maybe skip forward to the end or wait till tomorrow's video. But a lot of times the first rinse won't be as nice as subsequent rinses. I think it might have to do with the fact that I don't really wash my face before I shave. I just do a couple of splashes of water. One that's about 5 minutes before the shave, and then the other one right before I start lathering. And I feel that does really well for me with so many soaps. But and so I think sometimes those oils will affect the lather and the rinsing part after the first pass. But since I told you that I reduced the water on my face before I put on that second pass, this was a creamier pass than the first by far. It was a very nice rinsing experience. Okay, now I don't have any more slickness. There's drag on my face right now, and so this is not the kind of slickness that's gonna hang around for a long time. And it's not uncomfortable or anything, just stating the fact there. And so the second pass had just creaminess, nice slickness, a little bit of viscosity to it. It didn't take forever to rinse away. So I'm happy with that. It didn't have the weird feel like that first pass did. All right, so third pass. And again, I'm not going to put any water on my skin. And it looks like I will have enough soap to do the job. So this is not quite as economical by volume as most other soaps. A lot of them, if I do a quarter teaspoon, then they have 2 passes left over or something like that. Feels very good. It feels very comfortable and like you're spreading on a nice cream. It's got a nice fluid feel to it. I tend to like, the bison base from Declaration Grooming. It's got more of a fatty, thicker feel to it. The Reserve base from Barrister and Mann. Those are kind of my preferences. These newer bases like Icarus on Declaration Grooming and the Excelsior base with Barrister and Mann, especially the Icarus. This reminds me of the Icarus a little bit. And I don't quite like that kind of feel quite as much, but those are just my preferences. Tons of people are liking Icarus a lot, and it's a good performing soap. All right, so it feels good. I've got no irritation, no trouble spots, no weepers, nothing like that. Can't even hear any hairs being cut. So must have done a pretty good job already. I pretty much do 3 cross grain passes on my neck. Because if I were to do with the grain, it goes sideways like this, and since it's a concave shape here, going with the grain would mean doing this, and so that middle of the razor just isn't touching any hairs. And so I do like diagonal passes coming from different directions. At first I'll do diagonal passes coming from kind of an against the grain aspect to them like this, because the hair is moving this way too. Toward the end of the shave, I'll often come at it with a slight against the grain aspect, diagonal wise. And rinse. Again, this lather rinsed away reasonably quickly. I still had a nice luxurious feel, creaminess to it. Still kind of that glue-like creaminess instead of a fatty creaminess. And so I do like the other kind a little bit better, but again, that's just my preference. But it did wash away fairly quickly, rinse away. Now I think that weird feeling I'm getting might be related to the post-shave feel focus that a lot of these new bases are trying to accomplish. Oils and butters and things like that. So what I'm going to do is not put on any post-shave products. And I do have oily skin, and so I often can get away with that. But at least the creator is going to be able to see how a person with oily skin receives his products. Right now, my face feels very good. I'm going to do some cleanup, and that'll give plenty of time for it to kind of dry. And we'll do a report in another several minutes. Matter of fact, okay, right now it's about 12 minutes after the hour, so I'll check back when I'm done cleaning up and we'll see. He'll be able to know how many minutes have passed and how I felt at that point. Okay, as the results go, very happy with the results. After 3 passes, with other blades, I often have to do 3.5 passes because I need to do a little bit more on my neck. Not so with the feather, it usually treats me a little better. And that's the case today. I wasn't really able to find any hair tips with any length to them. I do see a good many tips, but they're just the tops of them, which is very above average for me since I can't go against the grain. Again, I don't feel any irritation or anything like that. And the scent strength was still low for that soap. And so if he's evaluating that part, there we go. I do like them more in the mid-range, maybe 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, something like that. And I'd definitely put this at more like a 2 out of 10. Not really discernible during the shave for the most part. I definitely could smell it when I put my nose in the bowl, but other than that, it just wasn't there. A lot of the makers are making weaker scents right now because I think that has to do with trying to appeal to as many skin types as possible. Lots of guys out there with sensitive skin or issues with strong fragrances, or if there's an oil in here that was used that can irritate some people, if he lowers the concentration, then that might not irritate some people, the very same oil. And unfortunately for people like me, who generally, if it's this strength, I'll just generally pass it on to somebody else. And so we kind of get shafted because of that. But there are still a lot of good, strong scents out there. You just have to find them. And so if this is a production quality level of strength, for me, it's much too low. I would not be keeping the soap. And so yes, 3 teaspoons is how much water I used, how much water I added to the lather. So there was a little bit of water in the brush already. I did shake it out for the most part. And how much lather is left? Not much. Enough for a pass? I think so. Yeah, definitely enough for another pass. And so in a way, that might be the perfect amount of lather. And so that was achieved via 1/4 teaspoon of the soap. So I'd say that's pretty good. Close up of the lather. Definitely hydrated nicely. And so the amount of hydration, the amount of water left on my face before the rinse was critical in this particular shave. If I left droplets of water on my face, then it kind of saturated the lather a little bit too much and washed it out a little bit. If I came at this with a dry face, I was able to get that creamy lather because it wasn't as diluted. So this is a right on the edge kind of lather. I did check the bottom of the bowl to make sure, and I had pushed some up on the sides as well. And it is clean of soap, and so we know that all of the soap was absorbed into the lather, so that was good. So I'm really liking this Zenith B10 brush. It has medium backbone, and so it's got just enough to get all that softness of the tips touching your face, keep it on there. It's not splaying out where it's not used, and it holds plenty of lather inside the brush. Really happy with that. It's just the tips are splitting, and it's just going to get softer and softer, and it feels very comfortable already. Zero possibility for me and people of my skin type of brush burn with this brush. And I like the density. I like the size of the knot, the number of hairs in there. It doesn't feel like too few. Sometimes the Samogs, they're a smaller knot. Sometimes they feel like a little bit too few, but not this guy. And I love how he's cheap. He's very inexpensive. Well, we're all cleaned up, and the post-shave feel, it's got to be a focus of this particular soap. That might be what's affecting the lather and maybe kind of making it seem more heavy or glue-like, or maybe it's got some oils in it. I'd say maybe an oily aspect might be a good way to describe it in addition. But my face feels nourished, kind of a silky feeling, if you will. So there's got to be some skincare products in this particular soap, and it seems like they're accomplishing their goal. I've had zero dryness or tightening of the skin, just comfortable feeling skin with no irritation at all. So really happy about that. I will, and it's been 13 minutes because it's now 26 minutes past the hour, so maybe 14 minutes. But so there we go. That's the time after the shave. I will also report in the description, maybe if I can remember, any time past now and how my skin still feels. I'll put that in there. I don't want to hold the video up for that. So in terms of at least for me, I have oily skin. And so I definitely can walk away from this shave with ease, even in the winter, without putting on any kind of post-shave product. So there's something to be said for that too. All right. Well, I hope this was a good review for Oz Shaving and their new tester base that they sent out here in early February of 2019. And so hopefully this is helpful for them as well as your average viewer who is just watching just for shaving technique or just for grins. Hey, you take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.